Dragon Ball Z Kakarot, released at the start of this year with mixed reviews, and I think it's safe to say it was and is still probably the most controversial Dragon Ball game ever. People were constantly debating over Kakarot, till this day on Twitter and on YouTube about things like, is it great, okay, or straight up bad? I'm going to try to review this game on my own rating system by giving it a score out of 5 in 3 different categories for a total out of 15, hopefully without any bias that is. In Kakarot, it is noticeable after playing through the whole game that it can be very beautiful in some scenes and not so beautiful in others. It has so many nostalgic tunes and tries its own simplistic take on arena combat. Kakarot is very high highs, but in my opinion when it comes to it, very low lows. This is my review for Dragon Ball Z Kakarot. A main topic of debate in Kakarot since the game's debut is how it looks aesthetically and animation wise, and exactly what is good and bad about that. In the first 2 sagas, or at least for the first 30 hours-ish, in Kakarot it's visually stunning. Paired with its iconic music from the anime, when I was playing through I was giddy with excitement. It was so nostalgic, especially for a mega fanboy such as myself. This is also true for the Gohan vs Cell fight, my personal favourite from the series, as well as Majin Vegeta's final atonement, Gotenks and Vegeto's fights, and the final cutscene. But that's about it. I know this issue of having bad animation and cutscenes in some portions of the game probably boils down to time restraints of development, as it's the first part and very last part of the game that holds its very immense quality and detail, besides Kid Dende and the end cutscene that is. It makes me feel disappointed when I think of how good the game could have looked if the team was allowed enough time to put as much effort and care as they did into the first 2 arcs and the end of the Buu saga. People were extremely disappointed to say the least when they saw that some of their favourite scenes were excluded from Kakarot or extremely toned down. One of those moments that was severely toned down was Goku's first time transforming into Super Saiyan 3. In the original anime, he screamed for around 2 minutes and the whole earth shook around him. In the game, it was reduced to a mere few seconds with a flash of light taking up the whole screen beforehand. Although there definitely was some large mistakes made, not including Super Trunks' fight with Second Form Cell, Vegeta's iconic final flash, and Goku's instant transmission Kamehameha, they still did a superb job in making some of the most iconic scenes in Dragon Ball come back to life. I don't understand some of the decisions they made, like they included a fight between Goku and Second Form Cell, which never actually happened in the anime, instead of doing a fight between Super Trunks and Second Form Cell or including Vegeta's final flash. It's just a little bit weird. They could have easily put in the time to make Vegeta's final flash and just gotten rid of the encounter between Goku and Raccoon, which looked amazing, but still, there's just no excuse to have one good cutscene over another one which is more iconic. Now to get into the actual overall art style of the game. At first I was extremely skeptical and I just didn't like the way that the faces and the bodies moved and how everything flowed. But as the game goes on, you learn to adjust to it and you learn to appreciate how beautiful the art style really is. The best looking scene, in my opinion, not my personal favourite, but the best looking, would have to be between Vegeto and Gohan absorb Buu, or Buuhan. The animation before and after that fight is a spectacle to behold, and it had me gasping in disbelief when I first saw it. Now to get on to the elephant in the room in terms of quality of animation and just how the game looked. In the Android/Cell saga, I was extremely disappointed to see the result. The animation was sloppy at best in some portions, and the only redeeming factor was the Cell vs Gohan fight. This was an extreme disappointment to myself, the one who loves the Android or Cell saga arc so much. I really wish they could have done better on this one. I think personally, overall, that the animation in Kakarot is great. There are a few hiccups here and there, missing out on some iconic scenes which really angered me at some points in the game. But for the most part, these things remind me of these iconic scenes that I grew up with as a child, and it gives me the same sense of wonder as I did watching the series in the first place. Overall, I would have to rate the animation in Kakarot a 3.5 out of 5. Now on to Z-Orbs. Z-Orbs in Kakarot are the basic thing you need to collect in order to level up your character and use their abilities in the skill tree. The skill tree is what you use to unlock new super attacks and different abilities that are unique to each character. Personally, I really enjoy the skill tree in Kakarot. It doesn't just give you more stat buffs the more panels you unlock, but instead it unlocks different iconic attacks and moves from the anime that differ from character to character, and I think it's a great way to encourage people just to level up so they can see these attacks from the anime in-game. Unlike other games, you don't unlock these skill panels though with skill points, you unlock them with these things called Z-Orbs. Z-Orbs, personally, I really dislike. The grind to get them, you either have to fly around the world, for hours upon hours just to gather a few hundred, or you can fight these battles over and over again just to get a few thousand. I personally really dislike this grind and it isn't fun in any way. This all being said about Z-Orbs though, they do hand out a hefty amount during the story and by defeating villainous enemies throughout the landscapes. I think this makes the grind much easier than it would usually be, but still, it's not perfect and I'd rather it be a skill point based system like most other games. To conclude this talk about Z-Orbs, I feel as though the skill tree is a great way of encouraging players to level up more and play through the story to unlock these new cool things that they've seen in the anime. But Z-Orbs hold that back significantly by making the grind for these attacks much worse than they should have been. And in conclusion, I would give this part of the game a 3 out of 5. Gameplay in Kakarot is quite unique and different from most other games. The only thing similar that I can think of is Xenoblade Chronicles 2. In Kakarot, you fly around in a 3D arena in which you shoot ki blasts, charge ki, and attack and use transformations in order to sustain your health, ki, and use super attacks to punish the enemy's attacks. I really enjoyed the gameplay loop of Kakarot at first, flying around and beating up enemies and unlocking these new attacks at a very fast speed. But as the game goes on and you move into the Frieza saga, it all starts to slow down, with bosses not having any unique abilities but instead just using super armor to go through all of your attacks and you having to dodge them for an endless amount of time. This also slows down the game a significant amount and makes it way less fun in the long run. As soon as you unlock the Super Saiyan transformation though, this all changes. Instead of becoming this endless mindless loop of just spamming a button over and over again and dodging attacks, it adds another and complex element to the game of having to preserve your ki by using these transformations that power you up but slowly drain your ki over the course of the battle. It adds a unique dynamic between trying to run away, charge and keep the stun meter up. I was hooked by the game once again once I unlocked the transformation. It was so fun to use and I just enjoyed the gameplay loop so much, until halfway through the Cell Saga when it began to become boring, as they didn't go down the route of Frieza in the Saiyan Saga where they made every enemy have a different ability which changed the course of battle. Instead they gave every and any enemy super armor to go through all of your attacks which you would have to dodge and it would become a mindless battle once again. Once Super Saiyan 2 is unlocked, it does begin to get slightly better, as heading into the Buu Saga, you get to use all the fusion characters as well as unlock Super Saiyan 3. With all these transformations, it makes the game much more interesting and playable than in the middle of the Cell Saga. That's why I think that Cell Saga is the most lacking saga in the whole entire game. Without these super armor enemies, I would have enjoyed the game much more, and I really wish that they diversified the cast of enemies much more, because when you're not doing a boss battle or a story mode mission, you are just sitting there fighting the same types of robots, Cybermen or other minions over and over again, and they all have the exact same attacks, and it makes flying around very boring and annoying at some points. Speaking of flying, the flying in Kakarot is probably one of my least favourite features. It's really clunky and weird to control and really hard to collect orbs using, as there's so many different weird buttons you wouldn't expect to be using during a flight mode in a game. But the flying during battle is way better. It's way easier to control and it kind of auto-locks you onto the enemy so you don't have to waste time hovering around slowly in the air. I don't know whether they didn't make it more similar to the battle mode in the open area. I'm not saying that the gameplay is bad by any means, because the gameplay itself is really fun. It's just the enemies themselves who have these ridiculously overpowered abilities that go through all your attacks, which is the annoying part. The gameplay on its own is a great feature and I loved it during the Saiyan Saga and the Frieza Saga in the latter half. Training is another very annoying thing in this game. You have to go into the training mode inside of Capsule Corp over and over and again until you can level up. At least when they released the Beerus DLC, it made leveling up much easier and much faster to get to the level 250. I think it would have been much better if they lowered the level cap to around 125 or something of that sort until the DLC came out, and then raised it when the new training event came out in order to make it easier and less of a grind. To conclude this segment, I give the gameplay of Kakarot a 3 out of 5. The gameplay itself is a great experience in the first few sagas. I really enjoyed it, but as it becomes more of a grindy battle sequence where you fight the same enemies with the same abilities over and over again, it becomes much less fun until when you use Vegeta and Gotenks in the later portion of the Buu Saga, leaving the Cell Saga to be a total snooze fest until you get Super Saiyan 2.
そいつはこの俺を倒してからにするんだな。わかったか？この醜い風船野郎め！また悪口言ったな。弱虫のくせに。 貴様の片付け方が分かったぜ。やっとな。
To conclude this review, I'm going to give my totally unbiased opinion about if you should buy this game or not, and is it worth the value, and also give my final score towards the game. I personally think if you're a person who's never seen the anime, it's probably not the game for you, and there's definitely other games that are worth your money at full price. But if it's on sale, I think it's a great pickup as just an RPG, and you can also learn the story of Dragon Ball. As an extremely invested person to the series, if you're looking to buy this game, I feel like it's a good idea, but you have to remember not to get mad knowing all these things are going to be unincluded from the game that you might have been looking forward to. I feel like it's a great idea to pick up this game if you're a casual fan of Dragon Ball, because you know what's going on and already know the story, so you're already willing to buy because you like the story. As well as that, you won't get too mad at the little inconsistencies that a more hardcore fan like myself would notice. Total score of Dragon Ball Z Kakarot, in my unbiased opinion, is 9.5 out of 15. It's not a great game, but it's still really, really good. I feel like you should definitely pick it up if it's on sale or something, or if you're a devoted fan to the series or even a casual one, but probably not if you're not too much into Dragon Ball or don't like the story. If I was being completely biased though, my personal experience with the game is that I loved it almost all the way through, besides a bit in the Cell Saga. If I was being biased, I would probably say my score would be 12 out of 15, so definitely pick it up if you're a Dragon Ball fan. That's all I have to say. Thank you guys for watching. Please leave a like and subscribe if you enjoyed. See ya.